One of the questions that I get most frequently from other instructors, Pilates instructors or movement instructors, and clients is, what should my shoulder blades be doing when I'm doing an upper body movement, like an overhead press or a push-up or a plank or rowing or pulling straps, right? All of these upper body movements that we do in Pilates and like just kind of traditional exercise programs all involve the upper arm, this is our humerus, and our shoulder blade. And you can see how those two bony structures form a joint, right? Which just means that they're in contact with each other. So when we move our upper arm bone, our shoulder blade also moves, or we want it to move. There is a kind of complex relationship between how much our shoulder blade moves when we move our upper arm bone, which Elvira, our skeleton here, she doesn't actually have a shoulder blade that moves, so we're gonna pretend. We don't really need to talk about the super complicated relationship. We can think of it as a simple relationship in that the shoulder blade, or this part of the shoulder blade that touches this part of the upper arm bone, they're always going to follow each other. Or I should say, the shoulder blade is always going to follow the upper arm bone, which in my mind really simplifies what that question of what should we do with our shoulder blades when we're doing movement XYZ. I like to think about it almost like a seal balancing a ball on its nose. Wherever the seal goes, that ball is also going to go, right? It's a very similar type of relationship, at least in my mind. Which means that when we raise our arm up overhead, the shoulder blade has to move so that where we have shoulder blade and upper arm bone contact is supporting the joint or the upper arm bone. So if we can imagine that the shoulder blade swings out to the side so that this little joint articulation is pointed upward to support the upper arm bone. Similarly, say when we're doing something like a push-up and our upper arm bone goes in front of our body, this little joint has to follow that upper arm bone around the rib cage and forward so that it is supporting that joint from the side. Which means that in something like a push-up, we want our shoulder blades to be pushed away from our spine so that that joint is pointed at our upper arm bone. When our arm moves behind our body, the joint has to follow the upper arm bone, and that's when we get our shoulder blades moving towards our spine. When we raise our arm overhead, remember the seal balancing the ball on its nose, this little joint right here has to face upward to support the upper arm bone. So we can kind of do away, for our purposes, we can do away with that complex relationship of the ratio of movement of upper arm bone to shoulder blade and just think about how we want this joint of shoulder blade and upper arm bone always in a relationship with each other. So as one moves, the other one also has to move. I hope that helps you figure out where your shoulder blades should be in space. And I hope that you've learned something exciting and interesting about your upper body or shoulder, movements, pain, how to work through pain, where should your shoulder blades be, right? We've covered all of that this month. Next month, we get to move on to something else and learn really exciting things about that other thing. So I will see you then. Let me know if you have any questions. because I am always ready to talk about super fun stuff like anatomy.